What's going on, guys? It's Matt with the FF Mediators and the Faceoff Sports Network. And tonight I'm joined by my guest coach, and we're going to do a full first round NFL mock draft. We're going to go through all 32 picks, give you some analysis on the players we're taking them, why we're taking them, and just kind of see how the board falls. But, Coach, how are you doing tonight, man?
Man, I'm doing good. It's been a while. Happy to be back.
Yeah, it's been a while. Coach has been coaching some basketball, but he's ready to get back to talking about some football here. And we're going to throw the draft board up here. And, Coach, as your first night back, we're going to give you the first overall pick. So you are officially on the clock with the Tennessee Titans.
Man, there couldn't be an easier pick right here, right? Tennessee Titans got it. They desperately need a quarterback, and they've got their quarterback of the future right there. I am rocking a Miami Hurricane shirt here, just so happened to be because we're about to take Cam Ward, number 1 overall, to the Tennessee Titans.
So Cam Ward is going to go number 1 overall. Coach is QB1. He's also my QB1 too. So a big time player. I think he's got a chance to really, display some of that poise he showed in college. I mean, the guy is just a all-time stone cold killer in the pocket. Don't you think, Coach? I mean, you watched a lot more Miami than me, but you really get to see it. He's just never intimidated. He's always calm, never under pressure, and just finds a way to deliver the ball.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Nothing phases Cam Ward. Cam Ward has a huge arm too. On top of that, he's a guy that once he gets the nuances of the NFL game, he's going to be really successful, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm really excited to see what they can kind of surround that cast there in Tennessee. But now's when the draft kind of gets interesting with the second overall pick. We've got the Browns here. I'm on the clock, and it's kind of going to shake everything up. If you go with Shedeur Sanders at the quarterback position, the Giants are going to start scrambling. They re-signed Myles Garrett, so in my eyes, that tells me they have a plan at quarterback. And of the veterans left, not really any of them I think are going to kind of save this franchise. So I think they take a shot, and I'm going to have Shedeur Sanders drafted here. You see his ADP here at 21.1, 47th overall on PFF. But when you really look at the situation, it's kind of what they're stuck with based on that QB cap hit from Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. There's a lot of options they could go with here as far as other players, but they're desperate at quarterback and they really need that rookie contract to compensate for Deshaun Watson. I totally get that pick. How do you think he compares to Cam Ward?
I'd rather have Cam Ward. I mean, I think you've heard it all with Shedeur. He's got a great arm, but it's just kind of can he really get it done in the NFL? A lot of people have comped him to maybe a Geno level quarterback, and I think that's a pretty good comp. I think he could do it. I mean, he played well at Colorado, but he wasn't spectacular. So I think his ceiling's a little bit capped, whereas Ward has definitely the higher ceiling in my eyes. But I think he's a relatively safe floor. I mean, you're going to get a hard worker and a guy that's going to give his best out there. I mean, he's been on this destined path for the league for a long time, so we'll just have to see what happens with him.
Yeah, man. Gosh, that just made things really tough right there, right? For the New York Giants. They had to be, you would imagine they're sitting there hoping they can get a shot at Shedeur Sanders. Now he's not there. That's making this really tricky on a guy like myself here having to draft for the New York Giants. In my opinion, there's a couple of ways they could go here. You either take possibly the most talented multi-purpose player in Travis Hunter. You can go with the best edge player in the draft in Abdul Carter, or do you reach and go for somebody like Jackson Dart? It feels like a major reach to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to say they take Travis Hunter right here.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a big-time playmaker for the Giants, both offense and defensive. How much impact do you think he would have on the offensive end with the Giants? I mean, they'd certainly be struggling at quarterback, kind of with their eyes destined on Rodgers, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they're in a bind now. I mean, I still think there's a world where somebody like Kirk Cousins would be available for the right price. I mean, if something like this happened, then they would have no choice but to go out and overpay for somebody like Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, we've got some people here in the chat. We appreciate everyone tuning in. We've got Sleazeball. He says, "What's up, boys?" And then we've got Pete. He's happy to hear Coach is back, ready to hear your insights, Coach. So no pressure there from old Pete in the chat.
Oh man, that's brutal.
Well,
Pete put the pressure on, man. It's hard to live up to that guy.
No doubt. The guy's all time. And then we got Hoff coming in here too. He says Travis Hunter, the Giants, is building that secondary. Their 2024 draft wasn't terrible. You're not wrong, Hoff. I mean, it certainly would give them a little bit of flexibility. You know, he could maybe play some in the slot to kind of limit his offensive snaps, let him focus more on defense. I'm interested to see where Travis Hunter ends up going, just because he has such a path to providing impact on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I'm with you there without a doubt. Like that's and Shador Sanders being gone. If Shador Sanders and Cam Ward are gone right here, then that puts them in a bit of a bind, and there's no telling they could go a lot of directions then.
Completely agree. I mean, the Browns almost control the draft at this point, since it feels like Cam Ward's kind of a lock at that first overall pick. But let's get to the Pats here at the fourth overall pick, and I think this is almost a dream scenario for them. While they'd love to bolster that offensive line for, that young quarterback in Drake May, getting Abdul Carter at the fourth overall pick is just something I don't think that they can pass up on. I mean, he's the best edge rusher, as you already said. Guy was fantastic winding out his career at Penn State. So I think this is a pretty easy pick for the Patriots here.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you're rushing to the board to grab this guy now if he's still sitting there and available. I mean, you're right. That is without a doubt a dream scenario for them. That moves me on to the Jags here. I'm gonna move on to the Jags, and the Jags now would have. There's a lot of options here for the Jags. The Jags really could use another wide receiver to go along with Brian Thomas. I don't think tight end seems to be as big of a need because they seem pretty locked in on Brenton Strange. So I feel confident in there, and they've got a couple options here. They really could use a guy like Ted McMillan. They also could use an interior lineman, somebody like Mason Graham. So I'm really thinking that they go Mason Graham right here out of Michigan. I think he can wreak havoc for them on the defensive interior, and that's a guy that you'd be tickled to death to get right here if you're Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think so too. Just an absolute disruptor. You put him there in the middle, and you just kind of let him go. He's a really safe pick. Tremendous production from Michigan. Started all 3 years, and the guy just destroys blocks. He finds a way to make plays in both the pass game and the run game. Excuse me. And I think he's going to be a fantastic pro. Some people have some concerns about his size because he's a little bit smaller, but so is Aaron Donald. And I'm not saying that that's what he's going to be, but he's certainly a really good player. So I'd be pretty comfortable with Mason Graham on my team too.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I'd love to have him.
Let's jump to the 6th overall pick here, Coach. And we've got the Raiders on the clock. A lot of people are, including yourself, are kind of thinking this is the spot for Genty, but I'm not quite sold on that. I mean, they got Geno, you've got Brock Bowers, and I think this is kind of where you really have to decide what are you going to add. And, if Mason Graham fell to this pick right here, that would be really interesting to me. If you could have Max Crosby and Mason Graham together, that would be a pretty lethal duo, and you add in Christian Wilkes too. I mean, that's one of the better defensive lines that can cause pretty substantial disruption there. But I got to give you credit. Genty's in play. I mean, you're going to cite Pete Carroll has drafted running backs in the past. I don't necessarily love this pick, but I think I'm going to go with Ted McMillan. I'm not really sure this is going to happen, but I think it kind of fits. I mean, they're in need of a wide receiver. It kind of gives that big body for Geno to kind of add towards Brock Bowers so he can kind of have a little bit of a two-headed monster, and maybe they draft that running back in the second round.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, they could definitely use a wide receiver. Their wide receiver core is really, really poor. So there's no doubt, in my opinion, the Ted McMillan thing makes sense, especially the way he ran at his pro day the other day. I mean, So what's your thoughts on Ted McMillan compared to Golden?
I've been saying here recently that I think Golden is kind of sneaking into that wide receiver 1 spot. I just think Golden is so good, man. He's wicked fast. He's great in the intermediate and deep ball. Fantastic hands, solid route runner. I mean, I really think that this guy has a super high ceiling. And that's not to say that Tet's not good, because I think Tet's pretty good. He's just a different type. I mean, he's the big body X. His 40 did surprise me a little bit. I think he ran faster than most people think. A lot of people were trying to figure out what was his on-field speed this past season. I think the fastest I ever saw was only 20 miles per hour. That's not necessarily crazy. There's certainly a lot faster out there, but it's pretty good for a guy that size to be moving that quick.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, his size to go with that speed, I mean, there's too much upside there to pass on it. I mean, Golden's a good player, but you can't pass on this Ted McMillan size speed combination. Just potential there.
Mm-hmm. So, well, we got the Jets on the clock, Coach. You're back up. So, what are you thinking here?
Man, the Jets. This will almost shake things up a little bit right here. I do think they went and signed Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is a guy that they feel good about. Like if they get stuck in this draft without the opportunity to get a quarterback, they can play with Justin Fields for a year or two, see how that goes. But I think there's a real chance they reach out and make a play for Jackson Dart right here. Like I really believe that just seeing all the stuff coming out today, I think they draft Jackson Dart right here at number 7.
I mean, that would certainly shake up the draft. But, at the same time, we saw it last year when Michael Penix went. So something's going to happen that's going to surprise us. And I don't think Jackson Dart sneaking up that high is going to be crazy. When we did our first mock with Pete, I had him going 21 to the Steelers. So him kind of trending up draft boards seems right on par with the need and the value at quarterback. I mean, these teams have to reach. One, you want that first-round quarterback so you can get the fifth-year option. So it's an extra cheap year. And then 2, there's only so many, and if you need one, you got to pay up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it is what it is, and all the smoke coming out today with Jackson Dart, and you listen to these guys on TV, they're all high on him. I'm really high on Jackson Dart. Like I think the dude's a baller. Like I think he can flat play. The bigger the game, the better he plays. Like I really do like Jackson Dart here.
Well, now we got the Panthers on the clock at the 8th pick overall. It says here they need a wide receiver, an edge, and a DB. You could make the argument that maybe they get an offensive lineman to continue to help Bryce and kind of let him develop. But for me, I'm going with a guy that I think is a top 10 overall player in this entire draft class. He had a fantastic combine, and that's Jahdae Barron. I mean, this guy is a ball hawk. He's going to be able to lock people down. He's a little bit undersized, some smaller arm length, but the dude can fly pretty well, and I think he's just a really good player. You watch him on tape, and he just doesn't make a bunch of mistakes, man.
Yeah, he comes out of a good program. He's got great pedigree. You can't help but like Jahdae Barron's ball hawking skills. Like I think the guy's going to have a big impact. Put him in the secondary along with J.C. Horn. And the Panthers are in a good spot for the future.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, pairing those two together, I think, would go a long way and kind of help cement this defense a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings me to the Saints. The Saints at number 9 here. Saints need a lot of things. They need running back, but people act like they have to have a running back. I don't think so. Between Kamara and Kendre Miller, I think they're okay there. I don't think they're going to reach for Genty. I think they would probably solve that later on. I do think they could use a wide receiver while they got Olave. I do think they could use somebody opposite him, not to mention he's, in my opinion, sort of underachieved if we're just going to be real honest here. So I think they're going to reach for Matthew Golden right here at number 9. I'm thinking Golden to the Saints.
Now, that would be pretty fun. I mean, Derek Carr gets a second weapon. I mean, the big question is, does Derek Carr stay on this team? There was a little bit of an early commitment from them, but Matthew Golden would certainly take some pressure off Olave, who, like you said, has kind of underperformed. We have a tendency to overvalue him just a little bit, in my opinion, but he's a good player, and I think Matthew Golden would be a great addition for this team. So we've got back-to-back Texas Longhorns off the board with Jahdae Barron and Matthew Golden. And now, Coach, we're at a pretty big pick here, the 10th overall pick. We've got the Chicago Bears, who have picks galore, all sorts of things they can do. They've had a fantastic offseason. You and I have talked a lot about this off camera that, they've kind of won it again this offseason, and now it's time to put it together. And I think the glue to this pick, Coach, is going to be Ashton Genty. I've been saying this the entire time. I think Ashton Genty is going to the Chicago Bears and, going to completely flip this offense over so they can kind of start focusing on building that culture and kind of working towards that ultimate goal of making the playoffs and making a run.
Yeah, look, I'm a big Bears fan. We would love to have Ashton Jeanty. Like to me, that's a dream for the fans, for the team in general. I do think there's a world where the Raiders take Jeanty at 6, which then changes things a lot. I don't think a guy like Tyler Warren would be able to play here at 10 if we can't get Jeanty. I don't see us really reaching for Hampton at 10 if Jeanty's gone. But if he's there, I do think we're going to sprint to make that pick, and that's the guy that we'll take.
Yeah, well, let's just round out our top 10 here, Coach. We've got Cam Ward going number 1 to the Titans, Shador Sanders number 2 to the Cleveland Browns, Travis Hunter to the New York Giants, Abdul Carter to the New England Patriots, Mason Graham to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tet McMillan to the Las Vegas Raiders, Jackson Dart sneaks into the top 10, heading to the Jets, Jahdae Barron to the Panthers at 8th overall. 9th overall, we've got Matthew Golden to the Saints, and then our 10th pick here to the Chicago Bears, we've got Ashton Jeanty. And now, no pressure, Coach, but like Hoff said, you got to make a good pick here for the 49ers. What are we doing?
Well, I mean, they need so much at this point. I mean, they seem to be in a rebuild a little bit here. I'm kidding. They still have a lot of pieces. They've moved on from some guys like Debo, and they're sort of turning the page there. But I think they really need some help up front. I don't think that's nobody's doubting that. So if you think about Will Campbell, you think about Mimbu. To me, everything I read and watch about Campbell, I think there's a good chance he moves into the interior of the offensive line, which is fine. I think he's going to be a really successful guard in the NFL, which the 49ers do need that. But I think this is the spot when there's a high-quality tackle available. You're taking that over that interior lineman. So I think they take Armand Mimbu right here at the 11th spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic pick. Miembo's just an athletic freak. He had a fantastic combine. The tape's really good too. So he would be a plug and play player for the 49ers. Hoff says it's a soft rebuild, but you're not wrong, Coach. So, and I agree. I mean, they lost a ton of players. Picking a guy in the trenches is usually a pretty safe pick in the first round, and he's going to be a guy that you can just throw out there right away. Shanahan's going to love him. Not to mention he's going to get to learn from Trent Williams. So that's pretty good person to take notes from.
Yeah, no doubt. You can't have anybody better to learn from than him.
No doubt. Well, let's get to the 12th pick here, Coach, and it's going to be the Cowboys. Early on in the offseason, everyone's dream landing spot was Ashton Jeanty to the Cowboys. While there's certainly a lot of flair to that, and the additions there for the Cowboy backfield have been kind of interesting. But for me, I don't think they're going to take a running back here. I think they know there's a lot of holes on this team. You could argue they could go edge, maybe take a wide receiver, but that's just too early for me. And I think they're going to take a guy like Will Campbell, whether he kicks in at guard or whether he stays out at tackle. I think he's a good fit because he's a really good player. I mean, he's played a ton at LSU. And he's a little bit smaller, but the tape's great. If you go watch him on film, he looks pretty good. So I think he's going to be a plug and play offensive lineman in the NFL. And in this case, he's going to be a Dallas Cowboy.
Yeah, I really like that pick. I think Campbell's going to be really good on the interior. They definitely need some offensive linemen, especially with like the retirement of Zach Martin. Like there's a lot of room in there for them to be able to play somebody like Will Campbell. So I totally like that pick for sure. So that brings me to the Miami Dolphins here at 13. The Dolphins do need some interior linemen. They need a tackle. I don't see that being in play right here. I don't think they're going to reach for a guy like Josh Simmons or Banks. I mean, it's possible. Like I can see that happening. It just feels like a bit of a reach to me. They also need some secondary help, and the very best secondary guy available is Malachi Starks, and I think that's where they go right here. Starks is a guy they could play all over the field in the secondary. He can play free. He can play strong. I think you can use him in multiple ways in various coverages, and he can get downhill and hit you in the mouth, and he can play over the top in cover two or lock you down in man if he has to. So I really like Malachi Starks here to the Dolphins.
Yeah, Starks is just another guy that you're just going to be able to play him, and he's going to be really dang good. I mean, coming out of Georgia, he's seen it all and done it all. Fantastic player to be on the back end and kind of help revamp this Dolphin defense. But that leads us to 14, Coach, and this is kind of one of those picks that just feels right. And that's going to be Tyler Warren to the Colts. They need a tight end. Whoever's playing quarterback could use some help. You've got Josh Downs, you've got Pittman, so some solid wide receiver options, but the tight end room has kind of been just a barren wasteland for Indy the last few years. And I think Tyler Warren's going to be a guy that
Since
helps
Dallas
clean that
Clark.
up. Yeah, exactly. I completely agree.
Really?
I mean, he's just the guy that's just going to come in there. He's going to make plays. He's going to block his butt off and be a really good player in the NFL for probably a pretty long time. I mean, we've talked about this tight end class. It's really good, but Warren's the leader of this class. And, wherever he goes, he's going to be an instant impact player.
Tyler Warren can flat play. Like, I really like that guy. Every team out there could use a Tyler Warren. I mean, you take away the Brock Bowers and the Laportas, you got 4 or 5 top end tight ends. Every other team right now would rather have Tyler Warren, I feel like. So that would definitely be huge for the Colts moving forward. So that brings me to the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons have a lot of needs here, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They could look at a guy opposite a wide receiver opposite Drake London. Not really a whole lot available there for them to reach for if Golden and Tet are off the board. I don't think they're going after Burden here. To me, there's 2 guys that really stand out to them at this spot. And that would be either Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan, or Mike Green, the edge out of Marshall. James Pierce is a possibility. I just think they go Mike Green right here, and they need an edge rusher to get after the passer, and that's something I think could really help. This team is so close to being good enough to win the South. If you get a dominant edge rusher like Mike Green, I think you have a chance to really compete and win the NFC South for the Falcons.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, this team needs some pass rush. They need somebody to kind of create some pressure. They lost Grady Jarrett to the Bears, so they need some disruption on the defensive line. And I think Mike Green's that guy. I mean, he led FBS in sacks. You're going to point out, well, who did he play? I mean, he played Ohio State, played pretty well. So I think he's a guy that can make a difference. He's got a lot of speed. He played really, really well at the Senior Bowl. I don't know if you saw that clip of him against Josh Connerly, who's a possible first-round tackle, and he just flat puts him on his butt. I mean, so he's got a little bit of juice to him. So I'm really excited to see Mike Green find the landing spot here in the top 15. I think that's a really good fit here at the Falcons. But, Coach, as we're sitting here, we're not going to have any trades in this mock draft, but do you think that there's a world where some teams try and move up in this range? If this were the draft and you could go get a guy like Kelvin Banks or maybe Will Johnson sitting there, you still have Jahad Campbell, who's going to be the best linebacker overall. Is there a world that you think somebody moves up to take one of these guys?
Yeah, I feel like this is where it really starts happening between the 16 and 22 range. Like, this is where people will make a play to move and get up if at all possible. So I could 100% see that happening. Although the Cardinals, I think, have some major needs right here.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue they go offensive line. I think that's a good pick. You've got Marvin Harrison, you've got Kyler Murray. They could use some a little bit of help there to get Kyler the protection. The defensive line, they could certainly use that too. I mean, James Pierce would be interesting here. There's a little bit of a character concern with James Pierce, but we're not going to get into that too much. And then you also got Will Johnson, who had 9 interceptions in his career at Michigan. 3 of them returned for pick sixes. So the guy's kind of a ball hawk this past season. Didn't play too much. He had a bunch of injuries that kind of plagued his season. But, I think this is kind of the position where I think I'm going to take the chance on Will Johnson. I think they see with the 49ers kind of doing their soft rebuild that there's a chance that they could go out there and compete for this division. You've got the Seattle Seahawks, who are completely revamping their team too. Sam Darnold coming into town. They have the consistency at quarterback position and at the head coach. So I think this is the chance to kind of make your move. So I'm going to go with Will Johnson and see if he can be a guy that can lock down a side of the field and kind of be a man cover guy and really change this defense.
Yeah, I mean, you can't hate that at all. Like, that's something they really haven't had in a long time. Somebody that they really can count on the defensive side of the ball to be a real stalwart, and they definitely need a young guy like him to really get out there and change the game for them in the secondary. Man, that brings me to the Bengals, who are really, really interesting here, especially considering the fact that they've paid these wide receivers a ton of money. The Trey Hendrickson situation looks to be an absolute mess. like we saw today, he may be holding out. So I think that's going to dictate a lot here. A lot we can't really answer right now. If he holds out, they almost have no choice but to take somebody like James Pierce right here. Although I think they would prefer to have a lineman to protect Joe Burrow. I mean, paying the receivers do you no good if Joe Burrow's injured, like he tends to be. I tell you, I really think they need interior offensive line help. But I think go ahead.
Tyler Booker's interesting. I mean, the guard out of Alabama, Pete and I have a bet of whether he's going to be a top 20 pick. Lots of people think he's just an NFL-ready guard that's going to play for 10 years. So he's an interesting player to watch, like you're saying, of just who's going to be that guy in the middle to kind of help protect Joe Burrow. But you're not wrong. They're probably losing Trey Hendrickson too.
Yeah, and so is Greg Zabel. He's interesting right here too. Like the guy can play. I think it's a little early here for that. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna say that they're worried the Trey Hendrickson thing is a mess, and they take James Pierce right here.
Yeah, I like that pick. I mean, James Pierce has a really, really elite speed, and he has a chance to kind of really flip a team over on the edge position just because he can get after the passer. He didn't have a ton of reps at Tennessee, but that's because they rotated like 10 defensive linemen every single game. So those guys kind of never really got a chance to stay on the field, and Pierce could be a guy that could kind of really surprise people with how much production he has if he gets that full opportunity.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, now we're at pick 18. The Seattle Seahawks are on the clock. They've certainly been a team that's made a bunch of moves. You got Sam Darnold coming to town. It's going to be the JSN show with DK on the move, Tyler Lockett being released. The offensive line is kind of a mess, but they could use some help on defense with the edge, and I think that's where they're going to go. I mean, you've got Mykel Williams out here who I think is pretty – I don't think he's going to fall to 24. So I really expect him to go a little bit higher than this. And I think that's going to be the pick here. I think Mykel Williams has a lot of upside. You could argue Tyler Booker here, but I just feel like Mykel Williams is going to be the better playmaker for this Seattle team.
Yeah, I've read a lot today about if Gentry's gone, then the Bears go Mykel Williams at 10. So I don't think he will get this far. I really don't. So if he's there, I think the Seahawks. I think you're right on this.
Yeah. Well, let's jump to pick 19, coach, with the Bucs on the clock, who really could just use some help on defense. Like they need whatever they can get. Lots of returning starters on offense. So that Bucs team is going to be really interesting in the NFC South.
Yeah, you're not kidding there. When the Bucs were real Super Bowl contenders, their linebacking core was really solid and really athletic. And to me, right here, if you're the Bucs, this is your opportunity to go jump up the board and take Jihad Campbell. You're getting tons of value, the best linebacker in the draft. To me, you'd be tickled to death to get a guy like that right here at 19.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is almost the dream scenario for them. Of if they get Jihad Campbell at 19, they kind of get that future leader for the defense that can kind of be the guy with the green sticker, calling the plays, getting everyone lined up where they need to be, and hopefully, have a core to build around. I mean, that offense is with Baker. You got Bucky Irving. Cade Otton looks great. And then you got the two wide receivers on the outside with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and then Jalen McMillan looked good last year. So this is a team that could make some noise, and with the right pick could really kind of vault this defense forward a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Baker's got the offense rolling. So, they got to tighten up the defense, and they'll be okay. I mean, the South is up for grabs, man. If you want to, they can win the South every year. It's like them and the Falcons are right there, So, I mean, that their defense gets a little bit better. That's going to be their division.
I mean, I think you can argue they have the best offense. Like, I don't think it's really even too close. I mean, they've got a bunch of playmakers. Baker's played fantastic the last several years. Yeah. So you might as well start bolstering that defense and try and get in the playoffs and make a run.
100%. I totally agree.
Well, I guess we're here at pick 20, coach. The Broncos are on the clock. It's Pete's team. This is kind of one of those that you could go anywhere. Previously I would have said they drafted a tight end, but Evan Ingram coming to town, which is a great fit in my mind for Bo Nix. I don't think the tight end's in play anymore. Running back is interesting. They could go Armaion Hampton if that's your favorite running back here. But I think they wait. I think you can get that in the second round. You could argue Luther Burden or Mika Egbuka to pair with Sutton. Kind of give another guy to take some pressure off and add some help to Bo Nix here. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a Mika Egbuka go to the Denver Broncos here at 20th overall. Just kind of take some pressure off Bo Nix, get him another guy, and keep letting this offense grow and this young quarterback get more comfortable back there.
Yeah, man, you gotta love that if you're Bo Nix. If you could get Ibuka and Evan Ingram to go with Bo Nix, I mean, this team got substantially better. Nix proved that he could play, and all the help he just needs help. I mean, Cortland Sutton's not enough, so these pieces around him really will make him take off, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just think with Sean Payton and Bo Nix kind of getting that chemistry and continuing to grow, I really think adding a wide receiver to this room early is probably the better play because you can get a running back later on. They got a need at center. They made a ton of moves in free agency on the defensive end. So maybe they take a guy like Kenneth Grant right there, and that's a safe pick. I think it's really good. But for me, I think Amika Ibuka is probably the better play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a better player myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's
All
hit
right,
2021, Coach.
Man, I shook the draft up earlier with Jackson Dart going to the Jets. I might as well do it again right here. I think the Steelers take this opportunity to take the quarterback that they want. We saw this last year. Like we saw this coming, and it's going to happen again this year. They're going to reach, and they're going to take Tyler Shuck right here at 21. They're going to get their quarterback of the future. I know he's 25, 26, somewhere in there. But the dude he proved at the combine that he can run, that he's a better athlete than people give him credit for. He's big, he's tall, prototypical size, big arm, better athlete than people even thought. To me, this is a guy that has major potential in the pros, and I think that this is a guy the Steelers, draft right here.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting pick. I mean, a lot of people are going to get upset at Tyler Shuck because they probably don't even know who he is. I mean, like you said, coming out of Louisville, he transferred from several different programs, learned several different offenses, but he just had some bad luck with some injuries. All of them were bone breaks, not anything you really need to be worried about long term. But if you throw on his tape last year at Louisville, he looked really dang good, especially in that game against Notre Dame. He has some throws that are just absolutely fantastic. He's a little bit of a project, but I think in the right situation, and maybe a lot of people are going to hate this, but a guy like Arthur Smith, it might not be the worst pairing in the world. A guy that wants to run the ball. We'll see if they maybe draft a quarterback or something, or a running back in the second round with Najee leaving town. But I really think Tyler Shuck is going to be a guy that has a chance to sneak into the first round or be a second round pick with an opportunity to play.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Well, let's take the Chargers here, Coach, at 22. I think this is a pretty easy pick in my mind. There's a need at tight end. You could argue they go wide receiver with, maybe a guy like Luther Burden from Missouri. But, Ladd's kind of got a little bit of that slot game in him already. Mike Williams is coming back to town, so he's going to be a guy that can stretch the field. He's not necessarily the best player, but I think they'll probably address the wide receiver in the second round with maybe a guy like Higgins or Noel from Iowa State. But I think right here is where Harbaugh goes and gets his guy, a guy he absolutely loved when he recruited him to Michigan, and that's Colston Loveland. Just a plug-and-play tight end, a guy that's going to have a ton of opportunity and is a fantastic player. He can put his hand in the dirt and block. He's a fantastic route runner, has really solid hands, and he is really, really athletic. I think he's going to surprise people with how well he's able to just go across the middle, find spaces and zones, and create plays and move the ball down the field.
Yeah, and to me, there's clear distance between him, Tyler Warren, and everybody else. I do prefer Tyler Warren, but I think Colston Loveland's a heck of a player too. Like you said, he can do both. It's very important if you take a tight end right here in the first round, the guy can really put his hand in the dirt and block, like you said, and stand up and run pass routes. And I think these two guys, Warren and Loveland, are the two that can do that for sure. So I really like that pick.
Yeah, I think they're two guys that are going to play for a long time too. And like I said, the connection at Michigan with Harbaugh, I think it's just writing on the wall, in my opinion. And if he makes it to this point, I just think he's going to go to the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree. Now this moves me to the Packers. I think the Packers have clear need in the secondary. There's a lot of ways you can go right here. So I actually think they're going to take Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. He's an interesting prospect. Big time athleticism. He can do a lot of things. He actually had a better 23 than he did 24. So his ceiling felt like it was higher in 23, but if you go back and watch the tape, I really think some of it was just a little bit of bad luck here this year as a whole. So I just think this is a guy that they can really use in their secondary. Him and Amos, like people are back and forth on those guys a little bit, but I think Maxwell Hairston's the guy they draft here.
Yeah, I mean Hairston. You look at his combine; he had a really good combine too. His nickname, the Mad Max. I don't know if you saw that, but a really good player from Kentucky. He can play both zone and man, and not all the corners in this draft class can do that. He's comfortable in both. I think he's a really good player, and he'll probably fly up some boards too. Him being a first-round pick, I think, is almost a lock. I mean, this quarterback class is really, really good between Will Johnson, Maxwell Hairston. Obviously, you've got Travis Hunter, and then Jahdae Barron. Like, there's some guys that can really shut down a side of the field or be ball hawks to make plays on the ball. So I'm really excited to see where these guys end up landing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's a lot of options there. It sort of comes down to which guy you like the best. You're splitting hairs a little bit.
Yep. Well, let's hit the pick 24 here for the Minnesota Vikings. I think this is kind of a dream scenario for them too. With they have a need at running back. I don't think they take Omarion Hampton here. Obviously, you've got Aaron Jones coming back, and then I believe they had one. I'm just blanking on who it was. So, Coach, if you remember, by all means, throw it out there. But I think this is kind of the spot where Kenneth Grant goes. I mean, he's going to be a guy that you can have on the interior defensive line, played alongside Mason Graham. He's a little bit younger, but, man, he's got some freak traits. He's got the ability to really grow into that frame and kind of cause some disruption that Mason Graham was doing. So I think he's just a plug-and-play monster in the middle, and he's going to be able to really cause some disruption for this Vikings defense.
Yeah, I really like that pick, especially with the style of defense that they play now. They really like to get after the passer, and they like to blitz a lot. And this guy's Kenneth Grant can give them everything they need up the middle. And he just makes their defense even more vaunted and scary. If I'm the Bears, I'm not in a hurry to play this defense anyway. So I'm definitely not excited to be playing Kenneth Grant attached to that defense. That brings me to the Texans. Oh, totally. Yeah. You're right about that. Like, that's the guy you want if you're the Vikings.
Go ahead. Let's hit the 25th pick here. This is an interesting one.
All right, cool. All right, yeah, cool. The Texans, this is tough now. Like, there's two ways to look at this. One, you lose Tank Dell for the season, so there is a need there for a guy like Luther Burden. But at the same time, C.J. Stroud did not play as well as he did his rookie year last year. So I think you can make him feel a little more comfortable by shoring up his offensive line. They really need both of those positions. So you're thinking Josh Simmons, Kelvin Banks, which one of those guys do you like better? I happen to like Kelvin Banks better. When I look at their tape, I'm more of a fan of Kelvin Banks than I am Josh Simmons, although I think they're both good players. I feel safer. I feel more secure if I'm the Texans making that pick than I do Luther Burden right here. So I'm going to go Kelvin Banks.
Yeah, I think this would say a lot, too, if they get to this situation and they have their pick between Simmons and Banks. Simmons had that injury at Ohio State. Banks had pretty solid tape at Texas. But on top of that, they moved Laramie Tunsil to my Washington Commanders. So there's a need there. I saw today where they signed Cam Robinson. While that's certainly a guy who's got a ton of reps and a bunch of starts in his career with the Jaguars, and then I forget where he was last year, but wherever he was, after that, Cam Robinson kind of struggled the past 2 years and has, I believe, the most pressures given up over that time frame. So I think Kelvin Banks would be a good guy to kind of help bolster and make CJ Stroud feel just a little bit more comfortable, like you said back there.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't fault them if they went and got Luther Burden right here, but I think moving Tunsil, like you said, really pushes the chips in. They have to go get somebody right here at lineman. And there's going to be a tackle to choose from, and that's the one.
And I think it almost makes it a little bit easier, too, to get a wide receiver in the second round than it is to get a plug-and-play tackle in the second round. I mean, there's certainly a chance you could draft one and maybe a guy will fall, but I'd feel a lot more comfortable with Kelvin Banks and then a guy like Higgins or maybe Jalen Noel or, your Trey Harris, whoever your favorite wide receiver is in the second round, you grab that guy. I'd feel a lot better about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
We've got pick 26 here, Coach, with the Rams on the clock. Got needs kind of all over the place. That defense started really humming this past season. Really young on that end of the ball. But I think they're going to go with someone on offense to kind of help keep this run going. I already talked earlier about how you've got the Seahawks retooling. You've got the 49ers who are kind of doing a one-year reboot. This team was just a couple plays away from having a chance of being in the Super Bowl. We can't forget that. And I think the safest thing for them to do is probably draft somebody to help Matt Stafford continue to make those plays. And I think that's going to be where you have a guy like, maybe Gray Zabel, who can kind of play all over the line, or a guy like Josh Simmons, who has a ton of upside. He was injured about halfway through the year, but I think that's where they go. I think they get a tackle in Josh Simmons, who has the ability to plug and play, really make some moves on this offensive line and help really push this team towards making that run again towards the NFC Championship and possibly another Super Bowl run.
Yeah, 100%. Keep Matt Stafford upright, and you got a chance every year. I mean, he's as good as it gets. The dude's a gunslinger, most underrated quarterback probably in the history of football, in my opinion. So I think if you make that offensive line a little bit better, and you can steal another year or two out of him, then you're right where you need to be, and you've got a legit chance every year.
Yep.
So I tell you, this brings me to the Ravens. I'm going to make this pick, and I'm going to let Matt talk about it because there's nobody that loves these interior offensive linemen any more than Matt right here. Matt loves these guys. Now, he's got two guys to pick from here, in my opinion, if you're the Ravens. You're either taking Gray Zabel or you're taking Booker right here. Tough pick. Zabel might actually can move around and play more positions and is more versatile. But I'm going to go Booker right here. Take it away, Matt.
Oh, man. I would love to just have my choice between these two players. I mean, Booker is fantastic. Like I said, he's a pro-ready guy. You hear everyone talk about him out of Bama, and he's just somebody that's just ready to play, man. And so I love that pick. I can't fault you. And you mentioned Zabel, too, and that's kind of on the flip. You see here it says tackle out of North Dakota State. This guy's just a football player, man. He had the chance to leave North Dakota State, who's a really high-level FCS program, but he wanted to stay. He loves that team. He loved his teammates there and wanted to keep trying to win for more national championships because it's a historic program. But Zabel's just a guy that plays everything. He's got reps at guard, center, and tackle in his career. If you watched him at the Senior Bowl, the guy never came off the field. He was always playing something, and he played all over the place. And he always went against the best players. He did not care. He barely lost a single rep when he was out there. I mean, I can't talk enough about these guys. They're two fantastic football players. I'll always love talking about the guards and centers just because those are the guys that don't ever get talked about. But, man, there's some good players out there. But let's kind of recap here, Coach. We've already done our top 10, so let's start at the 11th pick here with the San Francisco 49ers, who took Armand Miemba, the tackle from Missouri. 12th overall, the Cowboys take tackle from LSU, Will Campbell. At pick 13, the Miami Dolphins take Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. Pick 14, we have the Indianapolis Colts taking Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. At pick 15, we've got the Atlanta Falcons taking the edge from Marshall, Mike Green. 16, we've got the Arizona Cardinals taking Will Johnson, the quarterback from Michigan. At 17, we've got the Bengals taking James Pierce Jr., the edge from Tennessee. At 19, we've got Mikael Williams, the edge from Georgia, going to the Seattle Seahawks. 18. At 19, we have Jahad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama, going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 20th overall, Pete's Denver Broncos take Emeka Egbuka, Ohio State's wide receiver. Pick 21, we shake up the draft again with Tyler Shuck, the quarterback from Louisville, heading to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pick 22, we've got Colston Loveland heading to Michigan. From Michigan heading to the Los Angeles Chargers. Pick 23, we've got the Green Bay Packers taking Maxwell Harrison, the cornerback from Kentucky. Pick 24, we've got Kenneth Grant, the defensive lineman from Michigan, heading to the Minnesota Vikings. At pick 25, we've got Kelvin Banks, the tackle from Texas, going to the Texans. At pick 26, we've got Josh Simmons, the tackle from Ohio State, heading to the LA Rams. And at pick 27, Coach just took Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama, which leads us, Coach, to pick 28. And we just talked about him a little bit, and I think this is the perfect fit. If Gray Zabel is not the most Dan Campbell guy, I don't know who is. That guy was made to play for Dan Campbell, of just football and just biting kneecaps. And I would absolutely love for Gray Zabel to find his way in Detroit. I think the fit is just, you couldn't ask for better, man. I mean, he'll play whatever he needs to play, do what he needs to do to help win games. Heck, you could probably hand the ball off to him and he'd find a way to score.
Yeah, the dude's just a tough football player. Like, every football team can use a guy like that. There's no doubt. Yep. I'm with you on that.
Well, it's a big pick
that
right
brings
here,
us to – yeah, this is your guys right here, man, the Commanders. And there's a lot of ways to go. Like, they could use a running back. I just don't think they go there here. Like, I just don't. I don't think they go Marion Hampton. I think and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, feel free, but I think they need a secondary player more so than people even realize. I don't think it's talked about enough. Yeah. I mean, Matt talks about it all the time, but it's like the pundits don't. So I think they go the corner out of ECU, Siobhan Ravel here. You hate that?
No, I actually don't hate it. I mean, a lot of people are going to kind of make that noise when they hear ECU, but he's a really good player, and he's probably going to get drafted in the first round. I've already said, this cornerback class is really, really good. You could make an argument for them to take the safety out of South Carolina, Nick Imamwari, who really set the combine on fire. But, I don't hate the pick at all. They need it really, really bad. We traded for Lattimore, but, he still was a little bit injured. You've got Sainstrill, who's out of Michigan. We drafted him last year. He's kind of more of our nickel guy. We kind of forced him to play outside, but they need another body. And I think investing in the first round to get another corner is probably a pretty good, safe play for them.
Like, I saw somewhere the other day, they had Thomas from Florida State mocked to the Commanders here, the corner out of Florida State. I just think this guy's better, just to be honest.
Yeah, I can't fault you, man. I mean, he's got some really solid tape. He's a great player out of ECU. Don't judge it too much. It's a bigger program than I think a lot of people would give it credit for. But he's a really good player, and that kind of leads us to the pick 30 coach with the Bills on the clock, and they need help on defense. If we saw anything from their playoff run, they need some help. You can make a case here for Ezeraku from Boston College, kind of a little bit of a more Montez Sweat-esque pass rusher. Not necessarily going to do anything fancy to get you 20 sacks, but definitely could get you 10 plus every single year. Derek Harmon could cause some frustration there in the middle, or Darius Alexander. I mean, this defensive tackle class is just loaded. Shamar Stewart is fantastic against the run. He's kind of got that body to really just do anything. But I think knowing what Pete would say here too, that this defense kind of needs some help here. And I think it's going to be Nick Imamwari from South Carolina. The guy set the combine on fire. There's some times in the tape that he just looks like, is he a little bit lost back there? He's missed some tackles, but there's a lot of traits there to really, really like. And with some good coaching, which they certainly have there in Buffalo, I think he could be a big-time player for them. And not quite Kyle Hamilton-esque. Kyle Hamilton was a lot more refined, but he's a lot like that where he's just a big body. I mean, I think he's 6'3", 6'3", 225, and he absolutely set the combine on fire and was basically like number one in or top five in every single drill he did there at the combine.
Yeah. I totally like that pick. There's a lot of different ways the Bills could go. I mean, they are so close to the Super Bowl. It kind of feels like they're going to take need more than anything else. Some people are going to take value, but I think when you get down in these spots right here, you go strictly on need more than you do value. So yeah, I'm on board with that pick.
Well, Coach, let's head to the Super Bowl runners up here with the Kansas City Chiefs. You are back on the clock. What are you doing?
Now this is really tough because I do think if Simmons or Banks or Booker or Zabel, any of those four guys are there at this spot, then that's who the Chiefs are going to take. But they're not, right? They've already been drafted. That puts the Chiefs in a bit of a bind. I think they would try to trade up a few spots to get one of those guys if they could. If you go back and you look at mocks throughout the last few weeks, a lot of people think they end up with a Josh Simmons type. And they traded away Tooney, and they got some draft capital there a little bit. So there's a world where they could try to trade up if they had to. But I do think if this is the board that in the hand that gets dealt to them right here, I think they go and try to get them a playmaker. And if Luther Burden is sitting there, I think they go get another playmaker to help make their offense a little bit better. And I think they draft Luther Burden right here.
I don't hate it. When we did our last mock draft, I actually had the Kansas City Chiefs with Pete. I had the Kansas City Chiefs taking, I think it was Matthew Golden. And a lot of people didn't like that pick, but I think Mahomes is that good of a player where you're going to trust him to get him help and kind of figure out the offensive line as you go. You could argue that they get someone like Josh Connerly, but I'm not sure if he's going to be that big of an impact to plug and play and, really be the guy. I think there's still some question marks there. They netted some picks, so there's certainly the chance they can go back and get another offensive lineman. There's still people available like the center from North Carolina. I'm blanking on his name. Willie Lampkin. He'll fall later. You got Tate Ratledge from Georgia. He's another guy. Jared Wilson from Georgia. Those are both players that you could get in the second and third round and kind of have some staple offensive linemen to help retool this team. But for me, I think Luther Burden going here would be really, really interesting because you kind of add to that threat that they get. It'll be interesting to see what they would do in this situation with having Worthy, Rashee Rice. We'll see what happens there. Hollywood Brown's coming back, but playmakers in Kansas City is always kind of something that you're going to want to see what happens, and it definitely creates some fantasy value. I know that much.
Well, I think a Luther Burden type too is something they could also use. They could use a little bit of that. Travis Kelce is not what he was. I know some people will have trouble admitting that, but he is not the same as he was. So they need all the help they can get there.
Yeah. I mean, if let's say that Colson Loveland fell to this point, Coach, at 31, do you think he would be in play for the Chiefs? Kind of be the heir apparent?
I really do. Now, I do think they like Noah Gray a lot. But yeah, I think he would definitely be in play here.
Well, let's talk about the Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. Coach. Got some needs here at guard, edge, and cornerback. They took the two corners last year. I think this is kind of where they're going to reset. Obviously, they had some people leave on that defensive line. Not necessarily a guard that I really want to take at this point. We just talked about them a second ago. But I think this is where they're going to get their next guy that's kind of a staple for them that just is out there making plays and on that defensive line causing havoc. And that's going to be Donovan Ezeraku. I mean, this defensive line is so loaded that they don't necessarily need the guy to have, 18 sacks in the season because they're going to have 3 or 4 guys that all have 10 or more. You could argue Derek Harmon or Darius Alexander. Again, Walter Nolan or Shamar Stewart. Like, there's so many edges here. Jalen Walker would be really interesting. I mean, I almost want to take him over Ezeraku now I'm sitting here talking about it. I think Walker has higher upside. He moved from linebacker now, kind of playing more of an edge role. But I almost think that Ezeraku kind of fits the mold of the Eagles better. So I'm going to have Donovan Ezeraku round out this first round. as we get our analysis here, Coach. What'd you think of that mock draft? Anything that surprised you? Anything that you kind of would rather redo or go back and change?
Well, I mean, when you think about the end of the draft, I think there's going to be a guy like Shamar Stewart that somebody reaches on and drafts a little higher than they should when the time comes, just on physical traits, even though his production and the player you see on tape is not really the guy that pops when it comes to just sheer athleticism. So I think there's a world where somebody reaches on him. I think it comes back to the draft will come back to what happens with these quarterbacks. You know, what happens with Shedeur Sanders early at picks 2 and 3? Do the Jets, do the Steelers reach for a quarterback? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the quarterbacks, most years they do control the draft, but this year's just really interesting because the Browns being at 2, if they take Shedeur, then it just kind of flips the script there in New York of what do you do? Are they scrambling for Rodgers? Do you bring in a guy like Russell Wilson? Like, there's a lot of question marks. And then how high do you take Jackson Dart? How high do you take Tyler Shuck? And then, or do you wait and take one of those guys in the second if they fall? Or maybe Will Howard out of Ohio State? Like, there's a lot of question marks around these quarterbacks. And I'm totally with you. They're kind of the dictators here. But, I think the Jets at 7 taking a quarterback wouldn't surprise me. The Steelers at 21 taking a quarterback, I think it's really likely. I truly do. I think they need that guy. They're searching for it. They took Kenny Pickett at 20 or 21, whatever it was a few years ago, and it didn't work out. But that was a bad quarterback class. This is a better class than that. So I think they do kind of control the board.
Like, I really think it's possible if Ward and Sanders go 1 and 2. I really think there's a world where Jackson Dart goes to the Giants just simply because they don't have a whole lot of other options there.
Yep. And they're going to have to get a guy that keeps Malik Neighbors happy. They went after Matt Stafford heavy, and it didn't work out. I think there's a good chance that they try and find a way to get someone in there to kind of fill that role and really help build that offense and kind of revamp the New York Giants. I mean, that Joe Shione and Dable, they're coaching for their jobs. Like, they really have to get this right. Whatever they pick, they got to get it right and kind of flip the Giants franchise because it's been too long where they're picking here in the top 10.
Yeah, 100%. And it's now or never, it feels like. That's why for them to sit at 3 and not have a quarterback available would really be a gut punch for them.
Totally agree. Well, I think that's going to do it for us, guys. We appreciate everyone that tuned in. So be sure to like the stream. Let us know below what your thoughts are on the board. We'll be sure to post it on X. So you can head over there and give us your thoughts too. We appreciate everyone who tuned in. So be sure to subscribe to the Faceoff Sports Network. And we'll catch you next